Okay, so we're kind of switching gears. We're doing like a new topic, starting with these notes. And the first thing we need to do is kind of like a prequel. It's something you need to know before we can really use it in the next set of notes. So today, this lesson is just about sigma notation. So it's a mathematical notation, and it's probably going to be, new to you maybe, but all things with math and notation, you just have to understand how the rules work, what it means, and what you're supposed to do with it. So this symbol right here, it kind of looks like crazy, right? It's a Greek letter, and it's called sigma. And what that means is sum, okay? So sigma notation is shorthand for repeated summing with a pattern. So what it tells you to do is it tells you to take all these different terms. Now, terms are represented by x sub I. So that's not like an exponent, it's down below, so it's called a subscript. So we're going to take different terms in a list, and we are going to, it tells us to start at x sub 1 and end at x sub 5. And we're just going to add them together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take x sub 1, the first term in my list, and I'm going to add it to the second term in my list. And I'll add it to the third term in my list. And I'll add it to the fourth term in my list. And I'll add it to the fifth term in my list. Now, remember, it told me to start at the first term and end at the fifth term. And I just add those numbers together and figure out what the total is. So that's just generic. Let's look at an example. In example 1, it tells me to take the sum of 3i, starting at I equals 1 and stopping at I equals 5. Okay, so I'm going to have 3i starting with I equals 1 plus 3i, but this time I is going to equal 2 plus 3 times I equals, I'm just counting up. It used to be 2, now it's 3. Plus 3 times I equals 4 plus 3 times I equals 5. Okay, so I started at I equals 1 and I stopped at I equals 5. Okay, and I added because it was a sum. Okay, so that's why it's all of these different addings. And then I just count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so now let's simplify it. Well, 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 plus 6 plus 9 plus 12 plus 15, if you add them together, it's 45. So that's our solution. That sum simplifies to 45. Let's look at another one. Okay, this one's a little bit different because I've got that 1/8 on the outside. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remember that I have 1/8 on the outside. In the end, I'm going to multiply my number by 1/8. In the inside, I've got that -2 times I. Remember, start at this number, starting at I equals 2, and then we're going to add my next term. -2 times, this time I equals, it was 2, count up, so 3. And we're going to add -2 times, I'm just going to keep counting, 4. And we add -2 times 5. And we add, I'm just going to go down to the next line, kind of running out of space, -2 times 6. And we add negative 2 times 7. And we add negative 2 times 8. When am I going to stop? I'm almost there. I'm going to stop when I equals 9. Okay, so that's my last term. And remember, all of this is going to be multiplied by that 1/8 in the end. So as I simplify, I'm just going to copy down the 1/8. Remember, I'm going to multiply by 1/8 in the end. Okay, now when I'm adding a negative 2, if you wanted to, you could have just written like negative 2 times 2, minus 2 times 3, minus 2 times 4. It would have been totally fine. I just put the pluses in to remind you that we are adding. Adding a negative number is kind of like subtracting. So negative 2 times 2 would be negative 4. Negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. Negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. Negative 2 times 5 will be negative 10. Negative 2 times 6 will be negative 12. Negative 2 times 7 is negative 14. Negative 2 times 8 is negative 16. And negative 2 times 8 is negative 18. Okay, and if you want to add plus signs between those, you can, or you can just leave it like that. Your calculator knows how to interpret it. Okay, so if I add those, negative 4, minus 6, minus 8, minus 10, minus 12, minus 14, minus 16, minus 18, I'm going to get 1/8, copying it down, times negative 88. And that is negative 11. So that's my solution. My solution is negative 11. In the very end, I multiply it by the 1/8. Okay, next example. I'm going to have 5 times I minus 7. Starting at I equals 3. And I'm going to stop when I get to I equals 10. Okay, so we've got that plus, write it again, 5 times I minus 7, but this time I equals 4, plus 5 times I minus 7, this time I equals 5, plus 5 times I minus 7, this time I equals 6, plus 5 times I equals 5 times I minus 7, and this time I equals 7, plus 5 times I minus 7, this time I equals 8, plus 5 times I minus 7, this time I equals 9, plus 5 times I minus 7, and this time, last one, I equals 10, and I stop. Okay, so now I simplify. 5 times 3 will be 15 minus 7, plus 5 times 4 is 20 minus 7, plus 5 times 5 is 25 minus 7, plus 5 times 6 is 30 minus 7, plus 5 times 7 is 35 minus 7, plus 5 times 8 is 40 minus 7, plus 5 times 9 is 45 minus 7, plus 5 times 10 is 50 minus 7. And then I'm going to add all of those together. At that point, I type it in my calculator, and it simplifies to 204. That would be my solution. Okay. Oh, and that's the end of the notes. Okay, so go ahead and practice these ones for a little bit. I know it's like time consuming. There's lots of numbers to write down, but it's not complicated. Okay, it's just learning how to use a new notation.